Welcome to the oft-delayed, never-forgotten Recorder on the Wall, Episode 2.
Hi, everyone.
And we're not having more technical issues, you're having more technical issues.
Well, it's hard to get a good signal out in Mossflower.
Oh, God. Oh, do you know what you have to pay for a cellular service out there?
Yeah. You might need to get Jess Squirrel to climb up to the very top of the bell tower and hang like a antenna or something.
And we're going to definitely talk about that.
Yep.
So, yeah, unfortunately, we don't have either of our guests. Matthias had some technical issue of his own with his audio system. We haven't heard from Drew in a while, but look, we don't want to leave you guys hanging, so we're going to go ahead and continue.
And it's ironic that we're covering Book 2 when this is recording number take 2, isn't it?
Or 3, or 4. It's the major take 2 because we re-recorded over an hour's worth of audio, and...
Well, we tried to record over an hour's worth of audio.
Yeah. And
anyway.
It only recorded me because our normal recording program can go... And no, I won't finish
Jump
that.
off a wall.
Yes, let's go with that. Or, you know what?
And go boil its head.
Let's say it can fall off a siege tower and hit a few branches on the way down. Because we're a PG show, so.
Well, isn't that the term in the books that they say go boil your head?
Oh, that's some of the nicer stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
So, last time in Redwall, and no, I'm not making the stupid Dragon Ball Z joke, so shame on you for thinking I was going to do so. Yeah. I'm not saying you, I'm talking to the audience.
Oh.
Basically, we left off with Matthias falling asleep in the middle of Mossflower.
Our hero, ladies and gentlemen.
Basil stayed here and rescued the Vole family. Aww. And Clooney is basically doing his thing. Yeah, he's about to. He's making mids for another attack. So this is the biggest chunk of the book. We first were thinking through this podcast. We're going to go through. Hey, let's go through these one sub-book at a time, and I didn't realize at the time how big this second part was. It's the bulk of the book here. So yeah, it starts basically with Matthias waking up, with we get a bunch of new characters introduced. So we get the Squirrel family.
Yay!
We get
Silent Sam,
who is adorable.
I love him.
Yep. And then we get his mom, Jess, and we get her Sir, not appearing really in this book, husband. He's there. He's named Mr. Squirrel. He doesn't do anything.
They call me Mr. Squirrel.
Yeah. So we also get introduced to the sparrows. More on them in a bit. We get introduced to our first foxes in the franchise popular.
Yep.
Salem and her son Chickenhound, which we're told they come from a camp not too far from the Abbey across the river. Okay.
Do they live in a van down by the river?
Well, they did, but then Clooney stole their cart to hitch up the mysterious horse to. So.
Okay.
And we get both Goosum and Log and the other shrews introduced.
Yep.
So, yeah, those are all the character introductions. We get, of course, a number of deaths, and we'll get to those in time.
Yeah, there weren't any deaths in the first part, were there?
Not really,
outside.
No.
I think Gear was the only one. Skullface also. It was just villains.
And some kind of just generic off-screen deaths, like so many Berman were killed, so many Abbey brothers, you know.
Yeah, I think it was all villain deaths in the first part, right?
Yeah, mostly. I think one or two maybe injuries. So.
Okay. There were injuries, but yeah.
Yeah, let's go over to the actual plot happens. So, basically, how does this continue? How do you get my book? Copy the book. Hang on.
Mine's in the other room.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I'll get my other copy.
You have more than one?
Yeah. This one's not in the best shape.
Ah.
Oh. This one, the cover had to be replaced multiple times.
Okay. All right,
glued back on multiple times.
Sorry. So yeah, we wake. Let's see. Matthias wakes back up. He meets a baby squirrel who takes him back to Redwall. And
and as they're wandering around in the woods, they find the creatures at Redwall discover that Clooney is trying to set up a siege ramp, and Constance decides to give them a fast track to the forest floor.
Yep. Well, I don't think we're at the siege tower. They're climbing the trees.
Yeah. Well, they're climbing the tree and they have the plank.
A plank, and completely meeting OSHA standards. They decide to start crossing this plank, and as you put it, Constance, need this and she shows them just how OSHA standard this plank is.
And Clooney goes, "Ah!"
Yeah, it's a scene straight out of Looney Tunes, complete with little poof of dust as he hits the ground.
Yeah. Da, 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 da.
No.
And Constance just goes, "Ain't I, you stinker?"
Maybe not quite that, but yeah, Clooney's injured as hell.
Yep.
So
all the vermin get out of Dodge, and as Matthias and his silent partner arrive, they discover one of the injured weasel, Scrag, and Chief's Thief, who is a wonderful, caring partner, decides to step on his neck and murder him.
Darkest book.
Yep.
Or at least pretty damn dark in the first place.
Like, good God. Just the...
yeah, they outright watch him get murdered.
Yeah, like, all the other deaths in this book, actually what happens to one of the other villains way later on is kind of gruesome too, but this one is just slow and just ugh.
And it's one vermin killing another, which is not new in the series, but... Well, okay, this is new for the series, but it's going to happen a lot.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of...
friendly fire.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, just Chief Thief's a bit of a... Shut up, you.
That describes him pretty well. He's a little bit of a cough.
He's a jerk.
Yep.
So
you're a mean one, Mr. Cheese Thief.
So Clooney basically says, yeah, go find me a fox, because they're apparently good at being healers.
Yep. I like the touch of the fact that all the other vermin are too scared to try and take advantage of Clooney, with some of them believing that he's just faking it.
And compared to other Horde Masters we're going to see down the line, yeah, this says something to Clooney's character that none of them are willing to take advantage of this situation.
Yeah, there's no star screams here.
Whereas Farrago in Salamandastron definitely has them.
Including his own son.
Yeah. Yeah. You almost wish there was a Starscream here. So, yeah. Make it more entertaining.
I think it does a good job, though, helping to continue to establish Clooney as a very scary villain, where this is someone who has multiple contusions, broken bones, everything, and his team is still scared to mess with him. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he can still strangle one of his men while ordering them to go get him a healer.
While his tail is broken. Yeah.
Yep. So, I do like that.
Yeah, so the healer Sailor arrives with her son Chicken Hound, tribe of foxes, and she starts, fixing him up, but because, species stereotype, the author basically cast her as she's duplicitous and is going to try and betray Clooney to the Abbey.
She's sly like a fox.
Yes, I'm just going to get to that. So, but Clooney's not stupid. He basically says she can't leave the camp, so she sends her son under the pretense that she needs specific herbs.
And so she asks one of the rats, like, can you write this down for him? And he goes, I don't know none of that there reading stuff.
Apparently he became American Southern instead of British, so... And our apologies to American Southern.
Your apologies.
Hey, I'm Midwest, okay? I live a little closer to them than you do.
Well, now that you just told them that.
I said, yeah, well. Anyway, so yeah. Chicken Hound goes and he takes what he thinks are the battle plans to the Abbey. And, which battle plans does he take again? It's not the tunnel.
He first brings just a note from Sela or however you pronounce her name, and just saying that she knows about Clooney's plans and wants to discuss something, but Constance just bullies the hell out of him.
Yeah, he tries to like play her off, and he's not stupid. So, or she's not stupid rather.
No.
Nor does she involve the abbot because she's going to handle this personally.
Yep.
So they set up a meeting, and Sayla's able to ditch her guards for all of 10 minutes. And in what, again, is something straight out of Looney Tunes, you can probably see like her eyes bulging. She meets the meeting place where she's supposed to meet the abbot outside of the abbey. Instead, this big hand comes out of the dark and squeezes her around their neck. And
you could just hear that auga.
Yeah, it's Constance, and she's choking her out. Sayla handles it well, as in she willingly gives over the plans without payment. Only for Constance to run into one of her many rivals in the book.
Red Tooth. And after she finishes with him, he runs into something else.
Hmm? Oh, yeah.
Red Tooth.
Well,
flies.
She had Constance's strategy to beat him, aside from trading easy blows. She grabs him by the tail and swings him like he's a what's the word for it?
Bolus?
Yeah. She swings him around on the head and smacks him right into a tree head first.
Well, she throws him and he flies, and then that's the end of that.
Yeah.
You will believe a rat can fly right into a tree.
Yeah, and Sayla and her other guard, who when he catches up, because he didn't see the badger, they have to get their story straight, because they're like, oh, crap.
Yep. So, while this hilarity is going on, Matthias and Methuselah are working together to solve the mystery of not only where Martin's tomb is, but where Martin's sword is.
Mm-hmm. A majority of the books are going to follow this pattern, whereas there's a riddle that someone left behind for someone else to figure out. And I gotta say, given this is the first book in the franchise, what was Martin thinking here? First, okay, I get upsetting some of the riddles because you just don't want anybody taking your sword and shield. Sure, fine. But, again, before we learn later how this was set up in other books, why would you put the sword on the weather vane? Why wouldn't... Kind of an odd place to put it.
I guess, this way, I don't know.
Well,
maybe he expected his descendants to have wings. I don't know.
Well, in the abridged series, basically had Martin step out of character and say, that jerk Matthias gets 2 seasons and I only get 1. Here, I'm going to mess with him.
2 seasons? Oh, of the cartoon show?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but this, again, it's a pattern where there's a riddle to figure out, usually in the middle of either a siege or some sort of crisis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I like the riddles in these
I'm not.
books.
I
think this one gets off to a good start, too.
Yeah. So, short version is they solve the riddle, they find the Tomb of Martin, which has apparently been lost for centuries.
Yep. And they find Martin's shield, which correct me if I'm wrong, does not show up again after this book.
It's mentioned in Matthias, or Matameo rather, and as well as the full-fledged armor.
Yeah, which I know the armor's in Mossflower, and it shows up in Matameo, of course.
But it's Matthias just straight up says he leaves the armor and shield behind because it's quicker to travel with just the sword.
Oh yeah, because we'll get to it when we get to Matameo. Yeah, it's just weird that the shield doesn't show up ever again. And it doesn't show up in any stories before this one either.
Or post afterwards. Yeah, it's just like, this could be important, but no, it just kind of poofs. So
yeah, that stinks too. I don't know. I think that could have been a cool thing.
So, but as we find out, Martin is a fan of monogramming everything he owns.
He's got this big M on the shield.
Yeah. So the shield is part of this riddle chain. It's like a Zelda trading sequence. I like to call it. And
is that a shield you have there? I know the exact thing to trade for that.
They put the shield.
Would you like to take these bananas instead?
They put the shield on top of the gatehouse, and it's like ancient mossflower laser beams. The moon reflects into the shield and lights up the weather vane where apparently the sword is supposed to be.
Dun dun dun.
Jess Squirrel the next day climbs up to the weather vane to see if it was there, and it's not. Oh, and there are sparrows dive bombing her.
Yep.
We get our first introduction to the sparrows.
They are crazy.
Yeah, that's a good word for it. So the Redwallers managed to drive the sparrows off of Jess by throwing stones up there. They managed to graze one of them, who crashes to the ground.
Yep. Her name is Warbeak. It's a lot of odd names for some of these characters. Like all the villains in this one always have, there's Dark Claw, Cheese Thief. When Cheese Thief's parents named him, they're like, well, we've determined his lot in life.
Yeah, what was Sailor thinking there?
Chicken Hound.
Yeah.
Yeah, real,
Sailor's not so bad. Clooney itself is not so bad.
Yeah.
But Cheese Thief? Did your parent hate you?
It would explain a lot.
Of course, yeah, well, yeah, probably.
Everybody hates Cheese Thief.
He comes to it. Well, he comes to his own sticky end later. But we'll get to that when we get to that. Yeah. And, yeah. What else? The next thing that happens is what?
I like the fact that Clooney, after he realizes what's going on, decides to fake out the Redwallers with the battering ram, and then goes with a tunnel plan as well, thinking that they won't see that. He's always coming up with different ideas. Right. And, granted, a lot of it is kind of like Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner, where he just gets foiled and literally falls off a cliff. But it's still good to see him, instead of just being the attack. He's trying to think of sneaky ways to get into Redwall, and figuring, they can hold him off, but if he actually gets in there with his giant horde, the Redwallers will be easy pickings.
Yeah. There's that. So, Clooney's he's doing plans upon plans, because he's not stupid. And he pretty much expects Sayla to betray him from the start, but even though he hired her for healing skills. And speaking of Sayla, yes, she is betraying him, as we've already mentioned him.
And that's the end of her.
Yeah, she gets she briefly runs to the Abbey, but they're not letting her in. No, that's the cartoon I'm thinking of.
Yeah, no, it's once Clooney finds out that she's listening, Chicken Hound or listening in, and that's the end of
he's healed to the point that he can at least do the rest on his own.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's dead.
Yeah. Clooney's mutant healing factor has kicked in, and he's all good now.
Yeah, he she's dead, and they don't quite kill Chicken Hound enough.
But they do stab him in the neck and throw him in a muddy ditch. And you know what? Honestly, can you blame them for not thinking he's still alive?
Well, as we've seen, Clooney's hordes, none of them, they don't always see a job through to completion, apparently.
No, they don't. And, well, to be fair, throughout the book, whenever they do see a job through to completion, it usually results in the death of the one that headed it up.
Mm-hmm. So, before Chicken Hound is permanent entrance to the Abbey, because he is, Matthias gets the bright idea of, well, since the sparrows must have the sword, since it's not up on the weather vane, and they're attacking just when he goes up there. So he's going to take Warbeak on a leash and basically climb up through the internals of the Abbey to get to the sparrows, where he presumes that they're living in the loft, in the attic, or whatever you want to call it. And it's like, I'm sitting here thinking, like, and no one in the Abbey thought to check up there? Like, see if their part of their house is being as serving as dorms to someone else? Like, really?
I would also like to point out, why is it that Matthias has to use rope and all this stuff just to get up there? Wouldn't Redwall have been built with getting up there in mind?
Yeah, you'd think that.
Like, I get it's like a physical trial for him, but it just seems like poor planning.
Yeah. Well, as we've seen,
Come on, Abbas Germain, you had one job.
As good as recorders as we do have over the seasons, either their records are incomplete, omitted, or
covered in dust. Yeah. That is an ongoing thing in this series, where just like every time people go into an area to find like old manuscripts and stuff, they're just like dust everywhere.
You'd figure they would actually keep a proper library, but hey, what do I know?
Yeah. And so while I do like...
I'm going to say Matthias is captured when he gets into the attic by the sparrows, but Warbeak talks the king, Bull Sparrow, out of killing him.
Yep, and Matthias feigns being a goofball to throw them off.
Yeah.
And we get to meet Warbeak's mom, Dunwing, who is awesome.
Yes. So, while Matthias is up hanging out with the sparrows and plotting to get at the sword, which...
Always plotting.
Yes.
And scheming.
Chicken Hound, for his own element. Dude, whatever you're opening, I can hear it.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Chicken Hound, for his own part, decides he heals up in the infirmary, and then he's like, to thank the Redwallers, he's going to raid the place.
Well, before he does that, they do get the big moment. They get the piece of the tapestry back.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Thanks to Basil and Jess.
Yes, and one of the more comedic scenes, Basil and Jess basically tag team Clooney's hordes, where they each provides a distraction, while the other takes their action.
Yep. And this was also a good moment because earlier in the book, when Basil first shows up, he essentially runs circles around Clooney's horde, literally, and makes them out to be complete idiots. Whereas this time, Clooney gets involved and almost kills Basil in the process, showing that he's not just some run-in-the-mill doofy horde.
No, he's one of the more competent horde leaders. I mean, there are very few incompetent horde leaders, but among them, he's probably the smartest tactician.
Yep. And taking from Matthias's notes, his favorite quote from this moment, where Clooney yells at him, "Get him! Grab that spy! I want his head!" And Basil goes, "What's the matter? Isn't your own head good enough?" "No, I don't suppose it is. Ugly-looking brute, aren't you?" Mm. And, of course, they get away. Basil, this is common for many hares, exaggerates an injury and goes, "I need to eat to make this better." I must eat. I am injured and I must eat.
Well, given that the Abbey is basically any kind of situation calls for a feast,
Yeah, and in all honesty, he kind of deserves it, too.
They get the tapestry back, and Methuselah is in charge of repairing it.
Yeah, And I must point out, I love the moment where after they get it back, they had used a decoy made out of an old dish rag, and Jess has to break the sorry news to Friar Hugo. I'm afraid we'll never wash another dish again. Alas, poor dish rag, we hardly knew ye.
So, yeah, again, Matthias is still up hanging with the sparrows, and Chicken Hound decides to raid the place.
And, on his way out, we get our very first good guy death.
Well, yeah. Named good guy death would be a better way to put it.
Main character death.
Yeah, Chicken Hound, he's getting chased by the Abbey defenders, and he runs right into Methuselah, and Methuselah, despite being frail of age, decides to stand in his way, and
that doesn't go well
Chicken
for
Hound
him.
takes the big bag of goodies and smacks Methuselah up the side of the skull with it.
Yeah, and it's a pretty tragic moment that kind of comes it's like a big shock moment that comes out of nowhere. And it's by far the last main character hero death in any of these books, but I think it's a good start of showing it doesn't matter what character you are. Pretty much even the main characters can die. Methuselah was a pretty central part of this book.
Point.
Yeah. And unfortunately, to add a supposed double tragedy, Matthias falls off the roof.
Well, correction. He basically finds out that not only the sparrows do they not have the sword, they lost it to a giant snake.
An adder.
Who we've already seen once before.
Yep. Alas, poor Rigier.
And
I knew him.
Redtooth, whose corpse got made into a free meal. So. Yeah. So Chicken Hound, in the wake of the shock of him bowling over one of the favored Abbey figures, he gets out through one of the secret gates that none of the vermin hordes ever try.
Oh, and speaking of our favorite adder,
he runs right into a hollow tree to avoid Constance the Badger, who is rightly pissed off.
And knocking stuff down on her way out and trashing through the forest trying to find him so she can beat him and throw him into a tree.
He reaches in the dark for his bag of stuff, and he finds a snake nose. And I'm sure we'll never see him again.
And he's like, my bag of treats suddenly feels slimy and scaly, and oh god, no.
Yeah. Yeah, he meets Asmodeus. We're not explicitly told he's dead, but yeah.
Considering every other character that has run into him at this point, and furthermore in later parts of the book are gone, it's safe to assume that he's dead.
Safe-ish.
Pushing up daisies. 6 feet under the ground.
Invisible.
Well, 6 feet.
This is an X-Fox!
He is now a rug.
Oh, there's an image.
Just him
yeah, on Asmodeus' floor. Yeah.
Yep. Please wipe your feet on the Chicken Hound before you enter my abode.
So yeah, there's so Matthias, for his own part, like he says, yes, he finds out the snake has a sword, but he manages to get the scabbard back.
The scabbard.
And as he's trying to make his escape, the King Bull Spiritus sees this, and he takes it well.
Yeah. And he and Matthias decide to jump off the... Well, don't decide to jump off the roof. That is kind of taken out of their hands and wings and paws and what have you. And they crash in... they fall and nobody finds them until they find them in the lake.
6 hours later.
And... and Matthias was thankfully held buoyant by the reeds.
Well, it would probably have been bad if the Abbey warrior drowned to death.
This is true. Do any characters in these books ever drown to death?
It's implied at the very end, but we'll get to that. Which makes the question. We'll get to that.
Actually, I can think of one character that drowned to death, but we'll get there when we get to that.
So, story ends with Matthias barely alive. Or the Act 2 ends with Matthias barely alive, and
Oh,
Or
no.
no?
No, there's still
Oh, yeah.
way more to Act 2. So, Matthias, as he's stuck in Dreamland, and Martin talks to him, and Methuselah's spirit talks to him, and he wakes up finding out that Bull Sparrow's dead.
Yeah,
Yay!
that pain
The
you feel in
king
your
is dead.
shoulder. That totally wasn't a bird beak lodge there, Matthias.
God. Um, and so, but then Matthias is like, "Oh, the tapestry's back. That's wonderful. I bet Methuselah is happy." And they're all like,
About that.
"Oh." As they all tug on their collars.
What? And he's just sitting there like, what? What?
Yeah. And he's like, "Why isn't Methuselah here? I'm sure my old friend is up and around and wants to greet me after my long time away. And why are you all crying?"
Yeah.
And so, of course, Matthias finds out, and
Okay.
yeah, I mean, we get the idea. Like, it's kind of implied that Matthias and Methuselah weren't close before the beginning of the book, but obviously, working together, solving the riddles, finding, the two of them understanding, like learning from each other, Methuselah became kind of like a father mentor to
Right,
him.
because as we recall, Matthias is an orphan.
Yep.
His sister's out there. I will always be watching you, Matthias.
No, the sister isn't a real character from the books. She was added to the cartoon, but we will get to that when the cartoon comes along.
Yeah. Always watching. And so, of course, Matthias is depressed about this, because this is, again, it's still good that even though Methuselah's dead, like, his death actually affects the story. It has long-reaching consequences throughout the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, Basil is my hero in this scene. I like this type of character that, even though things are serious, they kind of act as like the morale officer for the team, where they can get everybody smiling. They can able to make a joke and kind of get the others like, okay, things aren't that bad. And then as soon as that character turns serious, that's when stuff just gets real. And just a quote I always think of: "It's fine to joke around. You lose at life if you don't think a smile is worth making."
So, basically, Matthias also gives the news to the other Abbey members that the sword is in possession of the snake.
Well, he tells Basil this, and Basil's like, "Well, that's the end of that."
You're not. No, you can't go after the snake. What are you, stupid?
Yeah, but he's like, "I want to
No.
go after the snake." "Of course you do." And Basil's like, "Of course you do. Here, in order to get to the snake, you have to speak to an owl." "I will speak to an owl." "Of course you will."
And well, owl may eat you.
No, he won't. Of course you'd say that.
So yeah, he gives Matthias a little medallion that basically says, "You might not get eaten if the owl sees this."
And if he does eat you, at least the medal will give him indigestion.
Have fun with that. So Matthias,
I will say this also. I like how the Clooney and Asmodeus plots don't intersect, for the most part. They're both seen as huge, antagonists, but they're kept separate, so you never get that moment of, oh, which one's stronger, or whatever, which one's actually going to be the main villain.
Mm-hmm. So.
And so Matthias, because he's young and headstrong, and a certain old mouse isn't there to tell him, don't
It's
do
a
this,
snake.
gathers his stuff.
Yeah.
And he goes away. And he runs off and goes, "I'm going to find that snake and find that owl. And hello, little scruffy-looking mouse. Who are you?" "Oh,
We get
you're
our
a
first
shrew."
introduction to the shrews, who, again, species stereotype here.
They're shrews.
They fight.
They fight. They fight and fight and fight. Fight.
Kind of, yeah. Except they have a loose they have a loose Confederacy government, but they vote on everything. But Matthias is pretty like, you guys aren't going to help me at all. I'm out.
I'm going to go talk to the owl now. And they're like, okay,
Have fun storming the castle.
Enjoy being lunch.
And Matthias makes it to the barn where allegedly the owl may live. And instead of walking in the front door, he walks.
He sneaks in, falls off a ledge, and into the mouth
And
of
the
a
book's
cat.
over.
Yep.
No, of course not. But we're not going to get to it because that's part of episode 3. So.
Yep. And while Matthias is getting eaten, the battle begins again as Clooney attacks with the battering ram and the tunneling
And there's also
starts.
Sage Tower in somewhere that cornflower burns.
Yeah, well, that's in part 3.
Oops. Spoilers.
Yeah. And but however, the most important plot point, we have to make sure we get this through. Silent Sam is adorable.
I think we've always said that like 3 times.
Well, it bared repeating.
Yeah, there's a point where when Jess is getting bombed by sparrows, Sam grabs a butter knife, puts it between his teeth, and is about ready to climb up to defend his mom.
He is awesome.
Yeah, you don't want to mess with him.
We find that out even more in Matameo as well.
The book 2 ends with Clooney renewing his war pretty hard.
Yep. And I do like the opening salvo, though, where he's like, fire arrows, and they're all like, the sun's in our eyes, and he's like, God.
Oh
wait, was that part 1?
This
or
was
was
part
this...
of part 2.
Yeah, it was. It happened. Okay.
And for a competent commander, and he is, he's kind of just kind of makes some tactical errors too, but no commander's perfect.
Yeah, well, I think Matthias's note says it best that, judging by everything, Clooney's kind of getting tunnel vision.
Yeah.
Can't hit me for that one. I didn't come up with it.
Yeah, I'm not going to hit you for that one.
Yay!
One of the things, however, here in the I want to bring up, though, Hammered in the later books, is that the sword is merely a sword. Whether it's Martin's sword or another sword, it's the wielder who matters, especially when it comes to Martin's sword. However, in this very first book of the franchise, it's mentioned that, that Martin's sword would guarantee victory. No, it won't.
Hey,
Yeah?
Pete, you might want to wait until we get to part 3.
Oh.
Not going to go into specifics, but your point might show up in part 3.
Ignore me. So, what I want to bring up here? What miracle cure did they give Matthias? If the dude fell into water, as hard as that would have been, even using for this plot convenience pillow. I'm sorry, Bull Sparrow.
Oh. He had a feather suit.
He should have been out for a few weeks and probably have a little physical therapy somewhere in there.
Well, I'm sure it'll work out. He is the main character after all.
It's not like it's sleeping in an inn in Final Fantasy, but yeah, he's on his feet pretty quick.
He had a tent.
That's all I'm saying.
He had an elixir in his bag and a high potion.
So the battering ram, as far as tactics go, not denouncing it. I mean, I've never been in a medieval battle, but more than half the day goes by with and the battering ram it does moderate damage to the doors, but it's not going to open the doors anytime soon. So
I think it's also remember, he's also using that as the distraction for the tunnel,
which is going to come to fruition later on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the tunnel works out so well.
Yeah. What else?
There's definitely a lot of stuff covered in this part of the book, but it makes sense, though, that the middle section of the book should have the most amount of content. Mm-hmm. The first signs of, big deaths on both sides, And I like the fact that there's a big lull in the fighting because then you just get to see how both sides work when there is no combat going on. You get to see Clooney being like a cunning horde leader, and you get to see the Abby of like, okay, let's try and have go about our lives as usual, but also be aware that there's bad things out there.
What else? Oh, yeah, Clooney mentions he wants to learn how to play chess, because he'd probably be good at it.
And chess will never be mentioned ever again.
There's a lot in this book that are never mentioned again.
Yeah. Well, it's the first one, so they're still, he was still setting up, like, the world that they live in.
Let me see. I'm just looking through the various notes here.
Gotcha.
Oh, yeah. Chief Thief is put in charge of the battering ram. Isn't he? Or, okay.
Yes, he is.
Oh, yeah. Chicken Hound at one point styles himself as the Prince of Thieves. No. He's not ruggedly Hampson and accompanied by Morgan Freeman. Okay, that joke fell flat, apparently.
I don't know what
Robin
you're
Hood,
referencing,
Prince of Thieves.
I've only seen Robin Hood Men in Tights.
I am Rabbi Tuckman. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think we've pretty much covered everything here.
Yep.
Okay. Well, hopefully in 2 weeks, listeners, we're gonna get you we'll get you another episode as we look at book 3 of the final of Redwall,
The Warrior,
where everything comes to a head.
Yep.
Perhaps a snakehead.
So,
I don't know.
You may have a point.
All right, folks. We'll see you next time.
All right. Well, Pete.
Right.
Where I need to know where can people find us online? I mean, people might just start stumbling into other podcasts.
We can't have that.
There are other nice podcasts, but where can people find us?
RecorderOnTheWall.com. We're also on both the iTunes and Google Podcast Play directory. And you can interact with at least me. We'll be on the official Redwall forums and the Reddit's Eulalia subreddit.
Until next time, folks. Take care.